Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be doing something a little different this time around. We're diving into a profoundly moving piece of source material that tackles a question a lot of us secretly ask ourselves. Can our absolute worst, most painful struggles actually become our greatest assets? It's a heavy question, I know, but we're going to explore what the author calls the alchemy of pain. Basically, how to take a history of deep despair and completely transform it into a highly effective strategy, not just for your own life, but for helping others. Okay, let's dive right in.
The author anchors this entire philosophy on one incredibly piercing thought. Because I grew up without love, I could arrive at its essence. Now, I really want you to let that sink in for a second. For this writer, their entire 20s were just chaotic. They were navigating a world completely devoid of natural affection, just stumbling blindly while trying to figure out how to live right. But instead of letting that loveless upbringing destroy them, it became the exact foundation they needed. It gave them an understanding of the human heart on a level that most people, frankly, just never reach.
All right, part one, the textbook named Despair. Let's talk about reframing your past. You know how we usually look at our painful, seemingly loveless pasts? We tend to view them as dead ends, right? Like this permanent, heavy baggage we're stuck carrying. But the author argues that those grueling years aren't a curse at all. They're actually a necessary textbook. By repeatedly and gravely, I might add, reopening their own emotional wounds, they realized something huge. It wasn't about self-pity, it was research. They discovered that the exact pain and confusion they experienced mirrored the precise struggles that someone else out there is facing right at this very moment. Your unique trauma, it's actually a map that someone else desperately needs. So, how do we actually use that map? Well, it's kind of a three-step process. Step one is facing the painful past. Actually acknowledging the scars without turning away. Step two is recognizing that shared pain in other people. And step three, well, this is where the magic happens. It's about connecting through deep empathy before you ever utter a single word of advice. Because the author walked this exact difficult route, they instinctively know where a person is going to stumble next. You literally don't need a psychological manual when you already have the map of your own survived despair. Moving on to part two, the shape of love needed. This is all about finding the right phase. Because the author grew up without love, they had to study it analytically, basically to avoid being completely useless to the people they wanted to help. They consumed massive amounts of information across religion, philosophy, culture, the whole shebang. And what they found is this absolutely profound misalignment between what people ask for and what they actually require. On the surface, someone might say, hey, I need money, or I need a better business method. But if you look at their true face, their underlying emotional state, what they're really screaming is, I actually need confidence, or I just need someone to look at me and say I'm okay. If you don't correctly identify the phase a person is in, your help is going to completely miss the mark. To really drive this point home, the author uses a metaphor that honestly just hits the nail on the head, giving running shoes to someone with a broken leg. Think about that. It doesn't matter if those shoes are the absolute most expensive, high-tech running shoes on the market. They are entirely useless to that person. If someone's heart is frozen, delivering the logically correct information or a perfect, flawless strategy is totally pointless. No matter how good your intentions are, if you ignore their phase, your help simply won't reach them. So what does real help actually look like? Well, true love or support isn't some one-size-fits-all greeting card. It takes some pretty surprising forms. Sometimes, yeah, it's giving solid advice. But other times, it's scolding someone strongly just to wake them up. Sometimes, it's forcefully pulling them out of a toxic environment. And honestly, sometimes the absolute most profound act of love is just sitting together in total silence and crying. A seemingly useless act of shared grief can pierce a frozen heart way, way deeper than an expensive consulting session ever could. All right, part three, the identity of dream killers. Who is actually trying to silence you? Now, society usually pushes back hard right about here. There's this loud, common narrative out there that says you have absolutely no right to give advice unless you are a massive traditional success story. Unless you've made millions or have a wall full of perfect credentials, the world basically tells you to keep your mouth shut. But I want to pose a question directly to you. Why do true achievers never crush your dreams? Think about it. The common logic says only people who have made it get to speak. Yet, if you look at folks who have genuinely achieved greatness, they are rarely the ones telling you your ideas are stupid. They don't try to silence you. Why is that? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental difference in mindset. The true achiever, who, remember, was once a dreamer themselves, nurtures possibility. They respect their own past struggles way too much to crush yours. They don't just judge people based on mere profit or status. On the flip side, we have the realist, the dream killer. These are the folks who absolutely love to pour cold water on your ideas, usually from the comfort of a very safe, very stagnant couch. They never actually try to change anything in their own lives. True achievers protect dreams as a sign of respect for their own younger selves. So never let a static realist silence your hard-earned wisdom. Which brings us to part 4, the relationship of value and strategy. Let's talk about finding your niche. So we've talked about deep empathy and tuning out the dream killers. But how do we actually connect this deeply personal transformation to the practical reality of finding your worth in the real world? The rule here is absolutely non-negotiable. Don't lower your price tag with fake humility. I mean, how often do we do this? We preface our unique, hard-earned experiences by saying, oh, this isn't a big deal, or I'm no expert, but the author points out that this is literally just a self-defense mechanism. It's a way to protect ourselves from criticism. But what it actually does is signal to the entire world that your story lacks value. Stop discounting the profound worth of the painful road you've walked. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but literally nobody around me cares about my specific, weird experience. If that's you, consider the concept of 5 meters versus the world. It is entirely possible that within a 5-meter radius of where you are right now, there is zero demand for your specific, painful experience. But hey, we don't live in a 5-meter world anymore. In our borderless globalized reality, it is a statistical guarantee that someone somewhere out there desperately needs your exact insight. Your specific trauma is the key to their specific lock. But listen, hope alone isn't going to magically get that key into their lock. That requires strategy. And the author redefines strategy for us in a really brilliant way here. It's not some cheap gimmick or quick marketing shortcut. Strategy is the act of continuously keeping your antennas up. It's a persistent state of readiness and awareness. It's constantly figuring out how to deliver your unique value to those who need it globally, all while you're walking the long, necessary road. There are no shortcuts here, for sure, only preparation. So when you are walking that difficult road, what do? You look up. The next move is there. If you spend your whole life just staring at the ground in despair, ruminating on how unfair your past was, you are only ever going to see the dirt. But if you keep those antennas up, if you maintain that strategic awareness even when it's dark, opportunities and next steps will eventually reveal themselves. The universe rewards readiness. Which brings us to our final parting thought for this explainer. Your painful past is a textbook, so who is waiting to read it? Don't let the lessons you learned in the dark go to waste. You've already paid the tuition in tears and frustration, right? Now it's time to take that hard-earned empathy, value it correctly, and use it to literally change someone else's future. Thanks for joining me today, and remember, keep those antennas up.